All right, we are back. This segment, it's all about buy or sell. That's the theme. And at the end of it, we are going to talk about our thoughts on if the Tigers should be buyers or sellers at the deadline. But Tyler, I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to ask if you're buying or selling these questions. First one up, if you're ready for it, let's just jump right into it. Tyler, buy or sell? The Tigers are a good team. They just have a bad record.
Yeah, that's a great question to start on because I want to say sell on it just because while I think the principle is correct and that we are a good team, bad record, I think there are some numbers that like just because we have a bad record isn't the only downfall of this team. I'm gonna buy it, I think, because I think we are a good team. I truly think this team is so unique in that the the starting pitching has gone through insane injuries throughout the year, but the starting pitching hasn't really been an issue. It's really been the bullpen. I don't have the stat in front of me. I'm sure we lead the MLB in wins blown at beyond the sixth or seventh inning. But then you look at the bullpen ERA of I think their bullpen ERA is like 15th in the league. Like it's not the worst in the league, but yet we still are blowing all these leads, and so maybe it's not all on them that we're only kind of giving them 1 run leads and then we blow it because we can't get any more runs and we didn't get any before them, and so it's not really their fault. So all that to say, I'm gonna say yeah, I'm gonna buy that. I think the Tigers are a good team with a bad record, with a few other things that I think are bad in there. That's not just a bad record, but I'm gonna say good team, bad record. Buy it.
Yep, and I'm with you there. I mean, three All Stars, which it's
Would
nothing
be
to
four.
scoff at,
Would be four if you had a healthy Scooble all year.
and would definitely be four with Skubal. Dylan Dingler 4.0 WAR, McGonigal 4.4 WAR. Riley Green just absolutely tearing it up. For me, I'm totally with you. I might not say a good team. I'm going to say at least a pretty good team with a very bad record. At least that's where I am right now. Okay, next one. Probably a little bit easier one, maybe a little bit more fun one. We just talked about K-Dog, Kevin McGonigal. Buy or sell, Tyler. Kevin McGonigal is the AL Rookie of the Year at the end of the season.
There's only one world in which Kevin McGonigal doesn't win AL Rookie of the Year. That's if Murakami with the White Sox, he is basically doing Riley Green from last year, but to a better extent. He's just mashing home runs, and he went down with some injuries. If he comes back and just like goes on and continues to absolute tear and puts up like 50 home runs or something, he's like the only guy in the AL that would rival and give McGonigal a little bit of a run for his money. I'm absolutely going to buy that, 'cause even if he does that, then it kind of becomes like, okay, how much is a home run worth? Again, going back to like Riley last season, like was all these career high home runs worth all the strikeouts and the lack of defense? So it kind of gets into a conversation of like overall best player versus just home runs. And I think the baseball heads will kind of lean towards the overall rounded all-star rookie of the year. So I'm absolutely buying that. And like I said before, that just goes to show, like when we talked before the season started, whether they're going to bring up Kevin McGonigal or not. The reason that they didn't want to bring him up because they would have obviously used a year of service time on him. The reason they wanted to bring him up was that if he either A, won Rookie of the Year, or B, came in the top three of MVP voting in I think it's 3 years. And if we did that, then obviously we would have burned his year of service time, but we get an extra compensatory pick. So I'm so happy that Detroit kind of went out on a limb a little bit and brought him up here. Like that's what all the fans wanted to. It's like every trade deadline, we're like, please, like go for it. Like let's try this. Why not? And the front office, I feel like never does it. So to see the front office go out on a limb, bring Kevin up to start the season, and then have it as up to this point be basically playing out perfectly is a very, very nice feeling that we don't get to have a lot.
Just couldn't be better. McGonigal 4.4 WAR, which is third best among position players in the AL. So not just among rookies, like he's literally third best among all position players. So I think it's a very damning stat. More walks than strikeouts, 51 multi on base games. Only four other rookies that are named All Stars, and yeah, we think he's the best among them. So I'm totally with you. Buy there. Moving straight along, probably the hardest one, Tyler. Buy or sell. Tarek Skubal will be wearing the old English D after the trade deadline.
Okay, so this is interesting because the way you phrase that, Terry Scuba will be wearing, not whether I think he should be wearing, but whether he will be wearing. And I'm
And you can
going to,
answer it both. You can, however you want. Yeah.
yeah, I'll give, because at the very end, like you said, we'll kind of just give our overall thoughts on, buy or sell in the broader sense. So I'll give my answer on should when we get to toward the end there. Will he? I think he will. I think Terry Skubal will be wearing at the end of the
Wow.
season. I don't think he's going anywhere. We had a really, historically bad May. And then June as a team, we all picked everything up. Like we said, we just, for some reason, are not able to close games, whether it is all on the bullpen, even though they only have a 14th worst or 14th best, however you want to say, basically a middle of the pack bullpen ERA, which isn't terrible, but somehow we're still losing all these games, whether it's the offense not giving them quite enough support or they actually are blowing these games. I think in June we hit the most home runs in a month in Tigers history. So like because we had this resurgence, I think the Tigers, no matter where we're at, as long as we're not like 9.5 games out of the last wild card, like as long as we're within 5-6 games of a wild card, I think he stays here. Yeah, I think Terex finishes the year here in Detroit.
Yeah, there is still quite a bit of time before the trade deadline. The team currently sits 40 and 50. I think I mentioned already. But to your point, playing a lot better in June. So you never know what's going to happen. Let's say we rip off another like just insane 2 or 3 weeks, and we're only like 3 games out of the White Sox or whatever that is. I think maybe our answers are going to change a little bit. But as we sit right now, I'm probably going to say he should be dealt. But again, I don't know if we're going to do it or not.
So are you buying or selling? Are you buying or selling that he will be?
I'm selling that he will be. I feel like he's just too much value that we could unlock if we did deal him at the deadline. I mean, he's probably I don't know looking back in previous trade deadlines, but this has to be like the most coveted pitcher on an expiring contract in X amount of years. So I think that there's probably a scenario where you can deal him and still be probably within 3 or 4 games of the White Sox, and you never know what's going to happen. You could still compete, but I just think that there's just too much value on the table, and you got to sell him. So I'm selling there. I think he will not be wearing the English D.
Yeah, and we'll get to more of my thoughts on like whether we should or shouldn't as we like wrap up here. But all right, so buying and selling on that one. Interesting.
Uh, all right, next one, man. Kind of more of a quirky one, sticking in the AL Central, but not necessarily the Tigers. Buy or sell, the White Sox winning the AL Central is the weirdest story in baseball.
Yes. I mean, so this is really interesting because everyone's been talking about Kevin McGonigal making the All-Star game. The article I was reading was like end of season awards, who's the front runners for them. The White Sox have, I believe, don't check me on this. I think they have 4 guys that are technically in the running for Rookie of the Year, and that is crazy. Like I've never seen such a young team out of nowhere come up and then absolutely dominate. I don't think they're actually going to hold on to it. I think it's the White Sox. I think at the end of the day, the Guardians or the Twins are at 44 and 47. White Sox lead the division with 47 and 42. I think it is the weirdest storyline of the AL Central this year. I don't think they're going to continue it. Yeah, I mean, look back to this time last year. The Tigers had more of a lead and we were a better team, but the Tigers were in first place and then they absolutely collapsed after the All-Star break. The White Sox are a much worse team than the Tigers were last year. So I'm buying. That is the weirdest story in the AL Central this year.
Absolutely buying, man. I'm totally with you. Just look back just a year and a half ago, the 2024 season, 121 losses for the White Sox, and now they are, sitting at first place in the AL Central in July 2026. So yeah, crazy, crazy turnaround, awesome turnaround. But certainly weird, man. So I'm totally with you. All right, 2 more. We're gonna start with probably an easy one and then a harder one. Buy or sell, Tyler. Dylan Dingler finishes the season as the best catcher in baseball. Can he get it done? Can he keep this going?
Interesting. Let me pull up the catcher war right now. Shane Langelier with the Oakland Athletics, he had a very good season as well.
Yeah, I just pulled up his numbers too. It looks like Baseball Reference has him at a 3 WAR as we sit here just in July. So yeah, just a monster season, and I think it is Langelier that was voted ahead of Dylan Dingler as far as like starting in the All-Star game, and probably what I would say just looking at is his stats are very good.
So whichever one of them is going to come out of the All-Star break and not have missed a beat will be the one that ends up leading the division. And for catchers there, I mean, look at Shea, 20 home runs. Dingler, we said 19. So like they're both very good, very similar. I'm gonna sell a little bit on Dingler finishing the season as the best catcher in the league, just because of the uncertainty of how this team is going to look come trade deadline, and I think that could throw some wrenches in plans for how his season ends up being. So I'm gonna sell, but I think even if we do sell, which we'll get to here in a minute, he'll still finish as a top 3 catcher in the league.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just feel like the A's, to your point, just have more to play for right now. You never know how that's going to work. Dylan Dingler, just an exceptional start to this season, all-star. Okay, 2 more. The first one, buy or sell. If the Tigers are sellers at the deadline and they do sell Scooble, are you buying or selling that this will be the biggest haul in the team's history?
So it's funny you asked this because I just earlier today put it into Claude, just saying like what other pitchers would Scooble in the package that he theoretically would get would stand up against. So they said historically we're looking at David Price in 2015 when we traded him to the Blue Jays. Obviously that got us Daniel Norris, Matt Boyd, and I think Michael Fulmer as well came back in that deal. Michael Fulmer was the rookie of the year, so that was obviously important. And then the other ones, they had Max Scherzer going from the Nationals to the Dodgers, but that was a larger package that was traded. He was traded alongside Trey Turner. Max Scherzer in 2023 from the Mets to the Rangers, which was more of a salary dump. So that was kind of there. Those are like the three that Claude and ChatGPT kind of put up against. But either way, yeah, I want to have enough hope in our front office that this will be a historic haul. I think it'll be a minimum 3 to 4 top 100 prospects, and in best case scenario you get maybe 2 top 100 and two all everyday young guys like a Colt Keith or a guy that like has a lot of potential. I'm gonna buy.
Yeah, so you're buying on this, meaning that the Tigers are obviously selling. It's a tough one, man. When you talk about like 3 or 4 top 100 prospects, there's quite a few teams in baseball that don't even have that good of a prospect base, right? Or you have 5 guys, you're talking about probably a top 10, certainly like top half of the league in terms of your prospects. So I'm wondering if a team like the Rays, who wants to go all in, just as an example, like do they even have the ammo in their farm system to even offer that much? But at any rate, we will see. So again, I preface this at the beginning. All of these questions are kind of leading up to, what do the Tigers do at this deadline? As we sit right now, right before the All-Star game, Tyler, will the Tigers be buyers or will they be sellers at the trade deadline? Or will they stay put? Will they literally say, we're not doing shit? Which, could obviously happen as well.
I'm gonna give this in two different answers. What I want us to do and what they will do, because history tells us one thing, and I think I have a mindset of a different thing that I think is kind of best case scenario. What I think the team will do, based on where we live, how many times have we come onto this show and been like, all right, it's time to buy, or it's time to, we gotta sell, we gotta do something, and they're like, okay, yeah, we're working the phones. Like, you hear all these reports about so and so, the Tigers are tied and connected to so and so, and the Pistons have been in talks with so and so about so and so, and then nothing ends up happening. So I don't think we do anything. I think we stay put and we say like we're pretty good, or maybe we get better on the margins like we kind of did last year, even though that was such a public flounder, like it was so publicly bad. I think we kind of do more of the same because I think that's who Scott Harris is, and like he doesn't have the confidence to go out and take an absolute swing like that. So I think the team will do pretty much nothing. I think they're going to think they're kind of in it with the team we have, and I think they're not going to want to trade Tarek because of that, and I think they're not going to want to give up any real prospects because of that. And I think it's going to burn us in the ass. Do we end up making the playoffs, missing the playoffs? I don't really know, but I think we won't do really anything. Now, before I get to my what we should do, what do you think we will do?
I think they're probably going to sell, but maybe not quite to the extent that we think. Yes, I mean, Scooble is the name that everyone is, talking about. Obviously, I would hate to go down the road of we have our guys and we keep playing the season out, miss the playoffs, and then Scooble walks and we literally get nothing for him. So I think we're obviously going to try to move Scooble. I think the asking price, it might be too much, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if like you have a guy like a Jack Flaherty, even like a Kenley Jansen who's been very up and down. Potentially even a guy like Casey Mize who you're looking at the current window of the team. If you are looking to sell Scooble, you might want to cash in on a Mize too, just because he has been so good for the past basically 2 years. There's been a few injuries, but him basically coming off that stretch of insanely bad injuries, 2 3 years ago, he's been very good. So I think the team's going to try to cash in and still look to build around the core, like I mentioned. Your 3 all-stars, the darlings, obviously. You're building around those guys. Yeah, you're building around guys like Colt Keith, young pitchers like Troy Melton, they just look like they're going to be bona fide starters for years and years to come. I think this team wants to build around them, and I think it's probably, time to take a flyer on a year like 2026 where you just didn't have it. You're beating teams that are, quote unquote, a lot better than you, then you're losing to a bunch of the shit teams around the MLB. You find yourself 10 games under 500. I do think that they're going to be sellers.
So, okay, you think we will do, and it sounds like that's what you think we should do as well. That's it's kind of a 2-1. You think they're going to do the right thing and do a sell?
Yeah, I think they're at least going to try.
Okay, so I give mine. I think they will pretty much do nothing, which is a little bit of a pessimistic view of it. But again, we live in Detroit. Every single trade deadline, every single time we want them to take a stand, they don't. So it's kind of been burned into my brain. What I think we should do, we need to sell, but I'm gonna stop at just Tarek. I just sell
Hmm.
Tarek. Tarek Skubal, I don't think he wants to accept the money that we have here, and I think pretty much everyone in the MLB is under the same impression that he's going to go get the money elsewhere. I think you are still good enough of a team. I think we have enough young pitchers, like you mentioned, like with Troy Melton. Jackson Joe was just throwing off a mound, coming back from his Tommy John a few years ago. So, like, we have these good young pitchers that I think we can get by. No one thinks we're going to win the World Series at this point. Like, I know that I think that was your prediction that we were at least going to make the World Series or maybe even win it. No
I
one, I
did.
think
I
at this
did say
point,
we were going to lose it, I think. Yeah.
okay, and I don't think anyone is coming on here saying like they think this team can win the World Series. But I think they're good enough where like they can make the playoffs and win a round. I think they can do that without Tarek Skubal. So I think you kind of get the best of both worlds. You don't lose him. I think you still can make the playoffs without him and having good like I said, Keder Montero has been fantastic. Like the starting rotation has been really good this year. And so I think you can trade him, still put together that historical package just to continue to build this team and and still try and make a push. We can look to next year, maybe talk about the lockout, whatever that might be. But I think you sell on Tarek, and I think you keep everyone else. Now, if there's someone calls about Drew Anderson, or someone that just blows you away, like yeah, obviously you can sell him too. But I think Tarek's really the only one that I truly want us to sell. You mentioned Casey Mize. I mean I agree. Casey Mize has slowly, quietly been fantastic for this team. As long as he stays healthy, he's been really good. I think you have to have a real conversation with them because I don't think Casey in the front office gets along very well. This is the same front office that went to arbitration over, I think, $12,000 with Casey Mize. Like they were talking about like hundreds of $1 million contract, and this front office wouldn't budge in $12,000. And you can't tell me that doesn't have a little bit of bad blood. And so I think you have to have a real conversation that like, does Casey want to be here a long time? If you do trade him as well, that definitely hurts, being able to keep it afloat and selling out Tarek. But I want Casey to kind of continue to be here and lead our rotation if we do end up selling on Tarek.
You talked about Tarek Skubal. Like I think that our management just has to really look themselves in the mirror and say like are we at all willing to fork over the money for him? And if the answer is no, then I think that like you said, even if we have Skubal, this team just doesn't quite have it this year. Like we don't have the guns. So unless you're somehow buying at the deadline, which is also very very unlikely, it just makes the most sense to capitalize on everything that you could get from Scooble. I feel like everything that we have heard and everything that we've seen, to your point on, how Scott Harris and how this front office, handles these contract extensions. I think there's no confidence for me that they're going to want to pony up the money. So if that's the case, if you're not going to pony it up, they have maybe a 20% chance of making the playoffs. You have to sell Tarek Scooble. You have to go and get, those 2, 3, 4 top 100 prospects, whatever you can, and cash in on hitting on Tarek in the draft, 14th round pick, whatever he was, had some awesome years. Go be great elsewhere and still get some value there. So yeah, I'm with you. I think best case scenario, they stay put with everyone else and just deal Tarek Skubal.
And I think just to play devil's advocate a little bit, if you do end up buying, because I agree, just because you make the internal decision, like, all right, we're gonna keep Tarek, we're gonna give him whatever he asked for. This team is not good enough just as is, like you mentioned with Tarek. So that means you have to buy. You kind of have a good amount in your war chest. I think you can offer, a guy like Max Anderson who hasn't made his debut yet, but for whatever reason, I think he's more than deserving. You have a guy like Hao Yu Lee who's still extremely young, and another team might look at him and say like, yeah, he could do something. I mean, I know he started really slow, but throughout the month of June, he had a 328 batting average with 3 home runs. So like Hao Yu Lee, now that he's kind of got his footing in the MLB, that could be like a plug and play now for a larger package if we wanted to include him. There's a number of guys down in the minors that we can include. So I think you have the war chest to go out and get someone, but you can't toe that line and be like, well, we're gonna keep Scooball, but we're gonna just run it back with this team, even though that's literally exactly what they did basically to come into this year. And when we all said like you can't do that, you can't just pick Scooball and run it back. We'll break it down. We'll do a full episode on it, at the end of July, so we can break it down even further.
We will see.